My recommendation is, getting 10, 20, 30 deals under your belt before you really hit that sphere of influence.
Hello, welcome to episode 237 of the Smart Agents Podcast. As always, my name is Michael Walter, and I'll be your host. On today's episode, we're joined by Columbus, Nebraska-based entrepreneur and real estate professional Shae Spitz. Entering the industry as an investor flipping homes, Shae got her license in 2018 and hasn't looked back. Throughout our conversation, she shares the challenges and sacrifices she faced while launching her real estate career, the importance of building a truly personal brand, and advice for new agents when it comes to working with their sphere of influence. Shae is also the host of the R.E.A.L Moms podcast, a space for mompreneurs to share their triumphs, challenges, and tips on balancing business and family life. But before we get on with the day's featured interview, if you or someone else on your team has an incredible story of real estate success or tips to share with our community, send us a message to feedback@smartagents.com. We're always on the lookout for new guests to inspire our listeners. And lastly, if you enjoyed this conversation and want to hear more, be sure to subscribe to the Smart Agents podcast. We stream on all major podcasting platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and YouTube. All right, let's get on with our conversation with Shae Spitz. Be sure to check out the episode description for links to the R.E.A.L Moms podcast and Shae's social media channels. All right, well, really the way I like to start everything out is if you could just introduce yourself to us a little bit. Tell us where you're located and how your real estate journey got started.
So my name is Shae Spitz. I am in Columbus, Nebraska, and I got started in real estate back in 2016. It was off of a whim. My husband and I, neither of us were in real estate. Neither of our families came from a real estate background. They owned their own homes, but that was the extent of it. My grandparents, both sets, still live in their homes after 65, 68 years. So I didn't realize how often people moved until I got into real estate. But in 2016, we decided to start renovating properties. We were both working full time. It was super random, to be honest with you. It's kind of a long story, but we went to a 3-hour conference, which led to a 3-day conference, which led to something much bigger than that, and a lot more expensive.
Right.
It was a very difficult decision to make at that time because the amount of money that we invested into this program or this business was more than I made in a year. And we had just gotten married, bought a house, we were engaged, bought a house, had a kid, we were married. And then a second one on the way. So there was just a lot of things. It was very gut wrenching. We took out a bunch of credit card debt. Fortunately, we paid it off in that year. But it was tough. And then after we started renovating a couple properties, I got my license and I went into it 100%. I was a case manager for mentally ill adults. So the psychology and patience behind all of that has helped me in my real estate career, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to imagine that is definitely a big help when it comes to dealing with, what can be the most stressful time in somebody's life. But tell me, I have to, that has to be scary to jump in like that and invest so much into a brand new career.
Mm-hmm.
What was that? Tell me about some of the challenges and then some of the things that you did to kind of start, building on that real estate career.
Cried a lot. No, it was very scary. And my dad, he's a farmer and they're very, very supportive now. But I remember him saying Shae, real estate's very risky. And I'm thinking, Dad, your income is dictated on
Right.
the weather, but they were very supportive and they helped out a lot. I think support is the biggest thing. Having my husband and I, obviously we decided to do it together. And so having that support, knowing that there were going to be challenges and working through them, we didn't realize how big of a challenge it would be because we ended up finding a property. It was pretty quick. It was just a couple blocks from where we lived. I noticed that it was winter. So I noticed there weren't tracks going in and out of the driveway. I had always admired this house because it was big and had a lot of character, but it needed a lot of work. And so I had looked up on the assessor site. I saw that they had moved out to Alliance or 4 hours away. So I sent them a letter. They called me and we looked at the house a couple days later and we had it under contract a couple days later after that. It was a very quick process on our very first flip, but it definitely cost us a lot more than we thought it was going to. We learned a lot. We were away from each other and our families, especially with 2 little ones, quite a bit because we both worked full time. We had contractors who were doing a majority of the work, but my husband was also an electrician at the time. And I would help with the painting, and my mom was helping with the painting. But it was a lot of evenings and nights and late nights, not only working on that property, but also the business side of things. Like we were staying up late and just going through all the training courses after we put the kids to bed. And so there was just a lot of sacrifice. I remember my family wanted to go out to eat all together. I was like, no, I have to be on this call. And it was going to be, a 2 hour call. So I didn't go with them to go out to eat. And I think that was weird for my family because we're a very, very, very close family. But they understood and they were okay with it, obviously. But those were a lot of the things that we had to do pretty often because we were very committed. We had $25,000 of credit card debt, that 0% interest for the first year, but we're like, we have to get this paid off. Like, that's a lot of money. And fortunately, we did. We got that house done and sold, and we used creative financing through private money lending, a construction loan, and a HELOC in order to buy this place and renovate it. So a lot of different creative ways of borrowing money. And we got it sold before that year, made a profit, I guess you could say, paid off that debt, and just kind of went on from there. We haven't done a ton. I think we've done a ton, like literally 12. Or I think we've done 12. Properties or more since then as far as flips. Now we have investments and stuff, but I would never want to take that year back. It was one of the hardest years mentally and emotionally, our relationship, everything, but it's definitely got us to where we're at today. And then on top of that, I started getting my real estate license. I was working in one area, coming home, driving another 30 minutes, 2 days a week to go to class from 7 to 10. And I did that twice a week for about 4 or 5 months and took my test, passed it, and I jumped in full time. So
yeah. So was that always the plan? Like once you started the investments and started the flipping, that you wanted to get your license, or did that kind of evolve when you saw the process of everything?
It evolved when I saw the process, but a big thing that really kind of was an awakening for me is, so I was a case manager for mentally ill adults, and my caseload, so the average caseload was about 24. My caseload was always like 28 or 32 because I loved what I did and I was good at it. My consumers loved me. They did really well. And I remember thinking, okay, and then I would go out on appointments. I'd come back, and some of my coworkers were still at the office because their caseload was like 18 or less. And I'm like, what are we doing? Like, give people more. So I actually went to my boss and I said, hey, like, I'm all for doing this. I love staying busy. I hate just sitting in the office anyway, but I know that like our break even is like 22, 24 consumers. I said, so anything above that, like, would I be able to get compensated? Because I started looking at my financials and I was like, okay, well, I could go back to school, get my master's degree, pay $30,000 to make an additional $20,000 a year. I was like, that didn't make sense. And so I went to her and I said, okay, well, if this is the break even, this is where you guys profit, anything above that, like, could I get compensated because my caseload is so full? And she's like, no, that's just not the way we do it. I'm like, sounds like I'm going to be leaving because I didn't want somebody else dictating my worth. I brought a ton of value to that business and they weren't willing to compensate me for my extra work. Cause I was like, well, why would I work extra if I'm going to get paid the same no matter what? And then I remember sitting at the office and I was always done with my appointments and paperwork by like 11 o'clock on a Friday, but I had to stay until 4. I'm like, so you're paying me to sit here for 5 hours? Like, I just thought that was crazy. I'm like, I'm literally going to sit here and twiddle my thumb or learn about real estate. And that's what I did. But I was like, I'll leave and you don't even have to pay me. She's like, nope, you have to have your 40 hours. I'm like, oh my gosh. It was just like mind blowing to me. I'm like, I'm done.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's been, myself also, I had a very rigid, kind of time career. And there was times where it was like, I'm just kind of sitting here, not doing anything. And then there's other days where I'm slammed and all over the place. And it's like, how can we balance this out? It's like, oh no, you have to work your set hours that we have every day. And so doing something that is definitely more on my schedule and my time has been very freeing. But tell me about, once you got your license, what did you do to start building that book of business and the lead generation and all that goes into being a boots on the ground agent?
Yeah, so I had relationships with some of the contractors in this area, and I actually started my real estate career in a separate town that I wasn't even working in previously. They were 45 minutes apart, but why I chose this other one, I have no idea. Well, I think it's because that's where my husband is originally from. So I knew when I got my license, I knew I was going to go to Columbus. Yet I grew up knowing Norfolk, went to school in Norfolk, lived in Norfolk, but for whatever reason, when I got my license, I went a different direction, which was a blessing. And I'm glad I chose that. But I to this day, I couldn't tell you why I chose that. It wasn't even a thought, it was just like, that's where I'm going. So I had good relationships with contractors because we were obviously doing some flips and renovations and stuff. So that did help me. But the biggest thing, because this was before like online leads and everything like that, like I sat in a cubicle. It was July 9th, 2018. And I thought to myself, now what? Like I thought there was a list of sellers and a list of buyers, and that was not the case. And I went, we had 2 kids, and I was like, I have to make this work. And so I was looking up every single YouTube video that I could to learn about sales and taxes and whatever you could think of. But I did a lot of door knocking. I was going on Zillow, looking at for sale by owners. I didn't really have the money to mail a bunch of things. So I was literally going on to Zillow, creating my own little postcard. This was before Canva, so you had to get real creative with Word documents or whatever I used at the time, print them, and I would literally go and drop off postcards to these sellers. I would look up their phone number. I'd be cold calling them, door knocking. I did a lot of door knocking in general. So like when I was hosting open houses, I would go around the neighborhood and drop off flyers and door knocking and stuff like that. For me, nothing really transpired with the whole neighborhood thing, but now I just mail out postcards anytime I have a listing and closing. But it was a lot of legwork, a lot of time in the office, a lot of paperwork, because that was before like dot loop and these electronic signatures. So it was a lot of time away from the family, because when you wrote up offers, you got together in person. It wasn't a thing to do Zoom calls or phone calls. So now we're so blessed that I can do most of that from home or wherever I'm at. But at the time, it wasn't that case. So I didn't care what it took. I let every single person know that I was a real estate agent. Actually, at the time, and I talk about getting back into this, but I remember on Facebook, I created my own little image and it said, "Happy birthday, Shae Spitz." I think I was with Berkshire Hathaway at the time with the little logo. So every time there was somebody's birthday on Facebook, I would just post the picture rather than just saying happy birthday. I would post the picture with my image, my, broker's logo, and then happy birthday. And that gained a lot of traction. I remember my sister had texted me one time. She's like, "Can you stop posting these?" I'm like, "No, I'm going to keep doing it. I'm going to do it more now." But then I remember somebody else commented like, "Oh, I've been waiting for you to post this on my feed for quite a while now, So like, I think that also gained a lot of traction as well.
Yeah, and tell me about that, because I think sometimes people are, afraid to put, like on a personal message or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Having that, look, I am a real estate agent, and this is who I am. Tell me about that decision to really kind of brand yourself as that, area agent.
Right. So, and I would say branding yourself is a make or break. But don't get stressed about forcing yourself into a brand, because I didn't truly start branding myself until last year. And by that, I mean is like, so I tried to force myself into whatever color that my brokerage was, because obviously you have to abide by their colors and stuff like that. But it wasn't until I'm where I'm at now that I was like, I'm going to just completely rebrand to the point where, so purple's always been my favorite color, has always been my favorite color. I'm wearing red today because we have a Go Red for women. Otherwise, I'm normally wearing purple. Literally everything is purple. Like my cup's purple, my phone is purple, my cooler is purple, my book bag is purple. So like I started rebranding myself last year because I was like, why am I forcing myself to wear red or forcing myself to wear black? I love purple. So I actually realized, I'm like, let's just rebrand to purple. So we started rebranding everything to purple. Like everything that I do, my signs, everything is purple. So now anytime somebody sees something purple, they think of Shae. And I've had a couple people like, "Oh, I just see you everywhere." I don't think that it's that I'm in more places. It's just that I stand out differently. Like who has purple? Like what real estate agent do you know that has a purple sign or wears purple? Like my shoes are purple. My makeup's usually purple, like everything. So, but that's that was 6 years into the business. And I tried to force myself to be red. I tried to force myself to be black, like, or blue. And it just didn't feel like me. And now it's just casual. Like now I'm like, oh, okay, purple, and I tend to start dressing my kids in purple. It's crazy. It's kind of weird, but so I mean, branding yourself is extremely important, but don't feel so stressed about trying to figure out what your brand is. It will come eventually, and it just takes time. Like, figure out what is it that you like. There's some agents in the area that yellow and lemons, that's lemons and chickens is her thing. She's always loved lemons. She's always loved chickens. And that is her thing. Like, if somebody sees yellow and lemons and chickens or whatever, like, we know it's her, because that's just what she loves. She didn't force it. It just kind of came to fruition after several years. But so don't stress too much, because I remember being like, oh, you got to brand yourself. You do, but don't stress so much about it. Like, it will come eventually, and try not to force the brand. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but
yeah. And what I think it's really important, don't necessarily, you don't need to force like the brand and, the actual, the colors and everything like that. But I do think it's very important to let people know that you are a real estate agent. Like, don't hide that from people on your social media or in conversations with people. Like, let people like do something that is outwardly showing that you are an agent.
Absolutely. And the other thing that I think people need to understand is that, for me anyway, working my sphere was the hardest thing to do, especially when you are new. And not to take things personal. You cannot take things in business or as an entrepreneur personal at all. I had family members who were selling for sale by owner or used other agents. And I took that so personal to the point that it kind of hindered my relationship with one of my relatives, and kind of still to this day, it's almost like awkward, but you cannot take that personal, because I was new. It's one of their biggest decisions of their entire life financially, typically. So they want to work with somebody that they believe, like, know, and trust, who can get the job done. And you can't fault them for making a decision that is going to be what they feel is best for them and their family at that point in time. So the biggest thing that I can recommend is I encourage new clients. Yes, you want to broadcast, you want people to know, but don't work your sphere. Your sphere doesn't know you as the professional. Now I have family and friends coming to me all the time, but it took 4 years, So don't stress so much about focusing on your sphere. It took my mom and I getting into an argument, because a lot of times people just don't understand. From where I'm from, it's a town of 600. They didn't realize you can have your own representation. They didn't know that. Most people believe you have to go to the listing agent. So you can't fault them for something that they don't know or understand. It took my mom buying like 3 different properties for me to be like, holy moly. Like, and she's like, and they were teeny tiny, like 5,000, 6,000 in our small town. And she's like, Shae, you wouldn't make anything anyway. I'm like, yeah, but if you're not going to use me, nobody else is going to. Nobody else is going to understand. Like, we got into an argument. Believe me, she now understands, though.
Well, and I really like, what you're talking about, for new agents is because I think so many times people are told, when you get in, you got to work your sphere. Mm-hmm. And, when you look at it from the family member's perspective, look, you're brand new. Like, I want to make sure that you know what you're doing. Like, give me like 1 or 2 transactions that you've done so I can see that this is going to be, right for both of us.
Right.
And I think that's one of those things that not a lot of people are told, is go out there, get some other deals under your belt, and then start working your sphere.
Yeah, you'll be disappointed. And then it's going to, you take it personal. It's hard not to, especially as a new agent, because you're only based off commission, so like, you need that to live and raise a family. So you do start taking that stuff personally. But my recommendation is, getting 10, 20, 30 deals under your belt before you really hit that sphere of influence, because it is disappointing. I'm not going to lie. It is very disappointing. I've been through it. So, but I've learned to not take things personal. You use somebody else, great. That's probably best for you and I both. And another thing, like, even to this day, even though I'm the professional in the area, they may not want to come to me because they don't want me to know their finances. Maybe they have bad finances, and I have a really good friend who's a lender and I use her for everything. But she says the same thing. Like, she'll get a little bit like take things personal when some of her close friends don't use her. But you don't realize a lot of people have worse off financial circumstances than you realize, and they just don't want you to be part of it. And you can't fault them for that. They're not going to come out and tell you that, but that's another reason.
Before we dive into our next topic, I have a question. Agents, are you ready to build instant trust with the sellers and buyers you meet? Well, with today's sponsor, Authorify, you can become a published author and gain instant credibility with potential clients. You'll easily win listings and buyers will want you to represent them as their agent. Imagine handing somebody your book instead of a business card and watching them realize that you're the real deal and want to list with you. Even better, you can try this out for free because Authorify is giving you a free sample book so you can see exactly how it works. Simply go to authorify.com/sample to claim your free sample book now. I want to get into, so I was watching, I think it's the video on your YouTube page kind of explaining who you are. And one of the sections in there was about your community involvement and really, making sure that you are actively involved in your community. Tell me about that and why that's so important to you.
I'm really going to chalk that up to my parents. Because I grew up in a small town and they were both so heavily involved in the community, especially even now more so because we were obviously younger growing up, but my dad and my mom were always coaching us kids in all the sports because it was more so like if they didn't, nobody would. But being involved is called Shell Creek Valley Days. My dad pretty much ran that. It's bull riding and all sorts of things. My mom was always involved with the community center now, or the community club. Now she is on the school board. My dad still does, fire department, always has. He was always a volunteer on it. As I got older, I actually ran the volleyball tournament for Shell Creek Valley Days to bring in more money for our community. And it was a huge turnout. Like we'd have 40 teams and I'm 17, I was probably 19, 20, just trying to organize all this. I did that for 4 or 5 years. And then after I had to step away because I got busier in life and I don't live in that area, it dwindled, unfortunately. But that's really a testament to my parents. They've always been so involved because if you're not going to do it, nobody else is going to, or, other people don't step up to help out. And so when I came here, I was like, I'm going to be involved. Like, I want to be involved. I want to better this community. I want to better. And when you better the community, you better yourself, you help your business grow. I mean, you don't do it specifically for that. You don't say, oh, I'm going to do this so I can get that. That's not what it is. You truly want to do it out of the kindness and goodness of your heart because you want to, and things do come, things will come back. But so right away, I got involved with the chamber, just sitting on a couple committees. I am now a Commodore. I've been a Commodore for 3-4 years where we go and welcome new businesses. And now last year I got invited to be on the board. That's fine. No, it's great. It really is great. You just get to know more on what's going on in the community, but it's not even that. The more you get involved, the more connections you start making. Mm-hmm. Like moving here, 26,000 people was a lot for me. That's a huge town for me. I came from 600 people. And, but the more you get involved, the smaller the community gets. And the more people start knowing you, they start seeing your face everywhere, So, there's several reasons. I also help found a nonprofit organization for women with children who are homeless or near homeless. So we find rentals, get them in there, help them with, we pay for their rent for first few months. They start taking over and eventually they take over the lease. So that's been a huge blessing, but it's crazy the amount of need that there is. And that all stemmed from me looking at an investment property. It was very sad. Went to look at an investment property. Property manager was like, that's weird. This door was just locked on Friday. Well, come to find out, this lady moved in over the weekend. She kind of broke in, but she had an air mattress. She had a 19-month-old and like an 8-year-old. There was like frozen burritos. So that's like, ever since then, I was like, we've got to do something for transitional housing here in our area. But so just things like that, and just looking for ways to give back to the community. It is so rewarding. It's a very selfish, good deed, because like you do that because it does make you feel good, without having a direct result coming back, but it will. And I know it will.
Yeah. Well, I think, as an area agent, being that community advocate is so important, and being involved, like you said, you don't necessarily get into it for the return, but it inevitably does, because it's the people and the people you rub shoulders with. And if you're rubbing shoulders with these business owners and people that are bringing new people into the community, or, local restaurants, like they're going to have other locals come in and they're the ones that are talking. And, you're the one, they might overhear a conversation in their coffee shop, and you're the person they're rubbing shoulders with every day. They're going to refer you.
Right. And people say that other people get lucky. I don't believe that. I believe that there's like somewhat luck, but it's about opportunity and saying yes to things that could lead to bigger opportunities. Because I said yes to being on the board with the chamber when I don't have a whole lot of extra time. You know what I mean? Where so most people do turn it down and say no because it is a time commitment. It is a big commitment. But I decided to say yes. Well, fast forward several months later, I am now part of a development here in the community, about 75 acres. It's me and three others. That there was several other things that kind of aligned with it. But one of the reasons that they wanted me to be involved is because I was part of the board of chambers. Like they knew that, well, Shae's going to know more about what's going on in the community because she's on the board. And so, I mean, most people would have said no to that and then maybe never have had that opportunity. So there is that fine line because you don't want to spread yourself thin, but you also want to be involved and say yes to things as well. So there's just a lot of things that happen. People can say, oh, Shae got lucky, but they have no idea what it's taken to get to the point now. They don't know that I've literally put up like all of my assets in order to make this work. Because any other agent, you know, when I start listing these properties, they're probably going to say, oh, she just got lucky. How did she do that? Okay, well, I said yes to many other things, and I put up every single one of our assets for liability, and I could risk, and I risked it all, and I am risking it all. Still don't know how it's going to work out, but
Right.
you know, I mean, like I didn't get lucky. I saw an opportunity, and I have faith that things are meant to happen the way they are supposed to. So
Yeah, absolutely. Tell me about with everything you're doing, and talking about the lack of time, being a mom too, and having a family in real estate, and with everything. How do you balance that out, and what are some of the things you've learned over the years?
I'm still learning. It's a very lonely path. Entrepreneurship is in general. And especially when you throw motherhood on top of it and you kind of have like this mom guilt and stuff. My husband's been absolutely amazing. That's not to say that we haven't been through our hard and challenging times and where we kind of pull away from each other and have a little bit of resentment because I'm gone more or he's gone more or something. We're in a place now that it's fantastic. Like we just know each other's schedules for the most part. We share a calendar and stuff, but having somebody there to support you, it can be a make or break. Absolutely. But I'm home most nights. Like I take my kids to school and daycare every single morning. That's just, my husband could, but I take him every single morning. And then he probably picks them up 3 out of the 5 days a week. So we just kind of like communicate like, hey, are you going to be able to do this? But communication is key when it comes to having a healthy relationship with your significant other, but then also having a healthy relationship with your kids too. So another thing that we started doing a couple years ago is every Friday around 3:30, my husband will take one of the kids, I'll take one of the kids, and we'll go on a little date night. It's even if it's for an hour, hour and a half, and then we go pick up the other. So we have 3 kids, and then we just rotate that, every week. So that has been a big thing with the relationship with my kids. It doesn't always work out like that because we have other activities that maybe are on Friday nights that we're not able to do like the one-on-one, but it might be like football game or going back and seeing family. But so that's been a big thing is just taking that one-on-one time, even if it's just for that hour, and really trying to dedicate your evenings when you are home with the family to them. That's been the biggest challenge even for me too, is because like as an entrepreneur, when you leave work, your mind doesn't leave work. Right. So it does. It also helps that my husband's now in real estate, so he kind of understands it a little bit better. But it is still, we kind of have to call each other out like, hey, we always say, hey, cheetah fingers. That's what we always say. Like when we notice when the other person's kind of on the phone in the evening, hey, cheetah fingers, what are you doing? Like get off. Like that's our sign. Like, hey, just get off your damn phone. You know what I mean? So it is challenging. My kids do kind of have a hard time with it once in a while, but I would say I'm getting better. Mm-hmm. But it's just setting those boundaries too. Like most of my clients know that unless it's urgent or we're coming up on closing, I'm not going to respond before 6, and I'm not responding, or I'm not going to respond after 6 p.m. and I'm not responding before 8 a.m.
Yeah,
I'm not doing it.
Yeah, and that was what I was going to ask you. About it's setting those boundaries with clients, and I think that's so important, and doing it early and setting those expectations early in the relationship.
Yep. Yeah, it does make a big difference. And especially as a new agent, that's hard to do because you want to like be there, you want to be the best person and all of those things. And I did that. So I don't really want to say that there's a right or wrong because that's what I did. And that's how I built those relationships. So I don't want to say as a new agent, you need to set those boundaries right away, but you do need to still have boundaries. You don't need to be answering calls and text messages late at night, early in the morning. Like nothing's going to get solved. Nothing will get solved. And so you do need to have some boundaries. And as your business grows, you can set those boundaries to be a little bit more stricter. You know what I mean? That's not to say that I won't respond or answer a phone call in the evening if I'm by myself or on my way back from a showing or a listing appointment, or, you know, if we have closing coming up and things kind of get a little bit rocky at the end, you know, I'm going to be there. I'm going to make sure that this goes through and as smooth as possible, but I'm not going to answer a text message or a phone call at 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night. I've heard some agents will be like, yeah, I'll be there 24/7. I'll, 2 o'clock in the morning. Nah, no. I am sleepy. I love my sleep. That is my thing.
Yeah, absolutely. You've also, it mentioned it with your husband, the support and having a great support system, but you've also, launched your podcast and, really heavily involved with fellow mother entrepreneurs. And just talk to me about building that community and that support system for having fellow mothers to talk to.
So it all actually happened about a year and a half ago as to why I started the community, which led to the podcast. And it's called R.E.A.L Mom. So it's Resilient Entrepreneurs and Abundant Living. But really what it came from is, like I said, entrepreneurship can be a very lonely path. Even if your husband or your significant other is an entrepreneur, there's different stages of loneliness and success and failures and slow times. So it's a very lonely process, or it can be. So about a year and a half ago, I went through the hardest mental breakdown I have ever experienced in my entire life. I get a little bit teary about it because I remember how horrible it was. I to this day, I don't know why. I've always struggled with, I have like some reasons, or I think it's just a combination of a lot of things. I had just switched brokerages, business had slowed down, expenses were increasing. I had always battled with anxiety and depression. And my smart self thought going off my meds like 6 months prior was a good idea because I was going to eat healthy, eat clean, and do all those things, which I was. And it was amazing, for many, many, many months. But then I kind of started going back into my old ways and the not unhealthy eating, but not the very strict. Right. I think it's just a combination of things. But anyway, I went through a horrible mental breakdown to the point that I was only sleeping like maybe an hour and a half a night. I was like shaking. My nerves were just shot. What felt like an eternity probably lasted 6 weeks maybe, which is still horrible when you're not sleeping. I lost about 18 pounds in 2 weeks, and I'm not a very big person. So 18 pounds is a lot. I liked the way my clothes fit. Everything was like falling off of me, but, I didn't want to lose it obviously that way. And I mean, it was horrible. Like people were like, Shae, you look sick. I'm like, I know. But, I remember going on a walk one morning and I texted a couple of my friends that one was an insurance agent and one was a lender. So kind of in my same realm. I said, we need some sort of community where I can talk to people like who are also mompreneurs that go through these struggles. Like I've been doing this at the time for like 4.5, 5 years. I said, and I'm going through this mental breakdown. Like it doesn't matter at what point in time you are in your career, you can always have those setbacks. You can always have those challenges, but having that sphere outside your personal family, it can be such a make or break. And that's been so big for not only my personal life and my business, but also for the other women. Like I get a lot of those women coming to me like, hey, here's what I'm struggling with. Or they go to each other. Like I love seeing that. Like I love seeing other moms going to each other outside me and building that relationship. And they didn't know each other prior to this, community. So that was really the pivotal point, which then led to my podcast as well. But it's been amazing, and you just have to have not only the support system from your family and your significant other and your kids, but also outside your family.
Yeah. And I think it's really awesome with your podcast. It's not just, real estate professionals. It's people from all over. And I think that's really important too, is to get those other perspectives and see that this is going on regardless of what the quote unquote industry is.
Yes. And it's funny because everybody that I talk to, everybody just kind of laughs when I say, I think looking from the outside in, people think that, oh, they got on this success and it's all uphill from there. And all the women laugh and they're just like, it's not that at all. Like, it is so far from that. Now, as you go through challenges, those challenges don't seem as big. They're not mountains anymore. They might be a hill or a little speed bump or maybe a little anthill eventually. You know what I mean? Like, they do get easier, but you're still going to have those mountains. You're going to have those setbacks. And so I've I've spoke to people who are worth millions and millions, and they're human. They're the same person that they were back before all of this, but they laugh too. Like, it's not that way. It's not, oh, yeah. I mean, yes, as you grow, it does get a little bit, you're not having such highs and lows, but when you have a low, it's a low. Like, it's hard. Like, probably lower than you would be if you didn't, if you didn't take that risk. Right. The higher the risk, the greater the reward, but the harder the fall.
Right. Absolutely. And I think it's, outside of the podcast, having, building that community where people can talk to each other and reach out to each other, outside of listening to a podcast or something like that. I think that's awesome that you're bringing these people together to, form these connections with each other.
Right. And it does make a big difference. And if they could just throw it out there and just having that trust too. Like, one of the things I was like, we're not judging. We are not, we're not judging anybody in here. We're not judging anybody out there. We're not bringing in that negative energy. I'm not doing that, because where your energy goes, your focus flows, or wherever your focus goes, your energy flows. There you go. So if you're focused on negativity, you're going to bring on negativity. I'm not doing that shit. No way. Yeah. So that's the other thing. And so the other moms that helped me kind of get this thing started was like, well, what happens? Like, if there's somebody that just doesn't fit, I'm like, I'll tell them they're out. I don't care. They're like, yeah, you will. I'm like, yeah, I will. If you're not a fit, that's fine. We might not be a fit for you too. So, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I'm not dealing with any negative energy or talking bad about people or judging people. That ain't the case. We're not doing it.
Absolutely. Well, for somebody listening to this that wants to listen to your podcast or get involved with your community, how do they find that?
Yeah, so they can go, I'm on Apple, Spotify, all those places, but it's R.E.A.L Moms, R.E.A.L, Moms podcast. And then, if you're ever in the Nebraska area or Columbus and you want to get a hold of me, you can call me, text me, 402-741-2576. I have websites and stuff like that I can always send you to, but that's usually the best way to get a hold of me. Awesome. Or social media, which all my social media handles are at Shae, which is SHAE, J Spitz, SPITZ. So. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I really do appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Michael.
I want to thank Shae for joining us today and really like her take on working your sphere as a new agent. Remember, if you're interested in hearing more from Shae, check out the episode description for links to the R.E.A.L Moms podcast. So once again, if you think you or someone else on your team has an incredible story or real estate tips to share with our community, send us a message to feedback@smartagents.com. Well, that wraps things up for this episode, but remember, follow the show wherever you listen to podcasts and make sure to subscribe to the Smart Agents YouTube channel. Again, I'm Michael Walter, and we'll see you on the next episode.